number one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, September 21st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 12 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. City Council is due to meet in 1 hour's time, but this is another of the lame duck sessions, so there are restrictions on some spending. The agenda today includes the Auditor General report into the purchase of electric buses for OC Transpo. But the AG has already said portions of this report are now moot since the city decided to partner with Toronto and their purchase of electric buses. There are a number of zoning issues on the agenda at City Hall this morning. Once again, the meeting gets underway at 10. This is the second last meeting before the election of Municipal Council on October 24th. Police officers, including some from Ottawa and right across the country, are set to remember a fallen Toronto constable at a funeral in Toronto this afternoon. The service features eulogies from the constable's wife and daughter, as well as tributes from police officials, Ontario Premier Doug Ford and the Toronto Mayor.
A service to celebrate the life of veteran Constable Andrew Hong will be held at 12 p.m. at the Toronto Congress Centre. The service is not open to the public, but can be viewed online. It's expected to be attended by Hong's family, fellow members of the Toronto Police Service, and other police and emergency services personnel from many other jurisdictions. The 48-year-old traffic services officer was shot dead last week while on break during a training session in Mississauga in what police are calling an ambush attack. Police say the same suspect then shot 3 people at an auto body shop in Milton, killing 2 before he was shot and killed by police in Hamilton. Karen Rebo, The Canadian Press.
City News time, 9:02. Now your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A warmer day for us will climb to 21 degrees for the high. That's above average. The average high is 18. Any fog will dissipate. Chance of showers or thunderstorms today and tonight, 12 for the low. And tomorrow we welcome autumn, and not until the evening though. And we'll have a cooler day again. The high just 14 degrees. Some showers mainly for tomorrow morning. For today, the high 21.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 12 degrees. Hurricane Fiona has strengthened into a Category 4 storm this morning, moving away from the Turks and Caicos. And up next, according to U.S. National Hurricane Center senior specialist Richard Pash, will be Bermuda.
Is moving now northward at about 8 miles per hour. Should turn toward the north-northeast and on a track that's going to take it near Bermuda or by late Thursday, early Friday.
And then late Friday and into Saturday, the Maritimes and then Newfoundland expected to receive a lashing from what is expected to be a tropical depression by that time. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered a partial mobilization of reservists in Russia. Some 300,000 people in the reserve units have been called to duty by that country. We'll have more on this story through the morning. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
When the headlines say X,
he's got the Y.
it's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Oh, the last day of summer. Fall arrives 9:03 p.m. tomorrow. Clocks roll back for the dreaded daylight saving time in 46 days. And winter is 91 days away. But I'm still here. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. We have a very busy show ahead. The morning is going to fly by. Coming up, our Parliamentary Bureau Chief is going to join us. Cormac, MacSweeney. Changes in the air. The Trudeau government going to change some things. News reports suggest the federal government will drop the COVID-19 vaccination requirement for people who enter Canada. That is supposed to happen by the end of September. The same day, it will end random testing of individuals, and it will also make the much maligned, often criticized ArriveCan app optional. All of this scheduled to happen on the 30th of September. Cabinet has yet to sign off on it, but not every COVID-era restriction is coming to an end. The mask mandate for planes and trains will remain in place. All of this has yet to be confirmed by official sources. These are all people whispering things into news reporters' ears. Psst. Arrive can. Optional. One has to wonder if Pierre Poilievre will take the credit, do a victory lap, as he has been campaigning and calling for this sort of action for many, many months now. So that's a big story. We're all over it with the help from our parliamentary bureau chief here at City News, Cormac MacSweeney, in just a few minutes from now. And then the political fix. We score our political fix every Wednesday morning with the help of some political analysts and political animals. And there's a lot to talk about this morning. Hey, Parliament is back, right? MPs back in the House of Commons. There was a question period yesterday. Pierre Poilievre raring to go. He was hammering the government for planning to raise taxes, like the carbon tax, like the payroll taxes, at a time when inflation is running at its hottest in decades. And in particular, now the focus is food inflation. That was the big story coming out of yesterday's inflation report from StatsCan, wasn't it? That whatever relief Canadians are feeling because of the drop in gas prices, well, that relief is, it's short-lived by the time you get to the cashier at the checkout counter of the local grocery store. Food inflation, the strongest it's been since 1981. I was 10 years old. How old were you, Noah, in 1981?
I was not even a fetus yet.
No. What year were you born?
1995.
1995, okay. 1981. I actually have memories about 1981. I was looking up some fun facts about 1981. Ronald Reagan became president of the United States in 1981, and there was an air traffic controller strike that year. Some of you may remember this. Comes up from time to time. The air traffic controllers went on strike. It was an illegal strike. And President Reagan said, you get back to work or you're fired. And they didn't go back to work, and he fired every last one of them. In Canada, in 1981, the 5-year mortgage rate hit 18.3%. 18.3%. And according to StatsCan, I looked up a chart this morning, it took 15 years for that mortgage rate to fall back down to below 8%. It took 15 years to go from 18% to the high 7s. The food inflation right now, it hasn't been this bad since inflation was that bad. That's how bad it is. And that was what Pierre Poilievre focused on yesterday. Now, meantime, the NDP is out with a new attack ad. It's made for TV. It's not made for radio. There's no point playing it on the radio because there's no narrator. Interesting that it's not going after their buddies, the Liberals. Of course, they're not going after the Liberals. They're partners with the Liberals in the worst food inflation since 1981. Nope, they're going after Pierre Poilievre. No big surprise. And they say what the NDP always says about conservatives. The conservative leader, he only cares about big business and the elites and the billionaires, and he's not in it for the working class. You know, the Ontario NDP said the same thing about Doug Ford. And in the most recent Ontario election, the Doug Ford PCs took 9 seats from the Ontario NDP. And the Doug Ford PCs won in places like Windsor, one in places like Hamilton and Timmins. Maybe that has something to do with why the federal New Democrats are first and fast out of the gate with an attack on the new leader of the opposition, because they're worried about Poilievre eating them for lunch with the lunch bucket voters. We'll talk about that. Score our political fix. We'll talk a little bit about Alberta politics. New Premier of Alberta will be named October 6th. And now there is a rumored candidate. Media report about this morning. The first named candidate in the media to replace Andrea Horwath as leader of Ontario's New Democrats. Instant frontrunner, I think, Merritt Stiles from the Toronto area. So we'll cover all of that for you right after the 9:30 news. Bruce McIntyre is going to join me this morning. We'll do Valley Views, get the update from Up the Line. Bruce is an award-winning reporter with the award-winning weekly community newspaper, the Eganville Leader. And one of the stories that Bruce has been following is what's happening in Pikwakanagan, the Algonquin First Nation near Golden Lake. Growing protests there against the AOO, Algonquins of Ontario. Apparently, if you drive onto the reserve, lots of signs, protest signs that say things like, hell no AOO. Phrases along those lines. Pikwakanagan is a member of the federation, this federation called the AOO. Other Algonquin First Nations have nothing good to say about that group. Like the leadership of Kitigan Zibi up near Maniwaki on the Quebec side. And the Ottawa angle to all of this is that the Algonquins of Ontario are part of a group that wants to develop this massive suburb called Taywin, near the big Amazon depot off the 417. And that's been very controversial here in Ottawa. It was when it came to the previous city council, and some mayoral candidates want that development tossed from Ottawa's official plan. Bruce, all over that story for us from the Eganville Leader. He'll join me right after the 11 o'clock news. As well this morning, the Talk Back Hour. We do the Talk Back Hour every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. And today, local issue for you today. Hyper-local. OC Transpo, public transit. Very much an election issue. Here's a question for you. What would it take for you to stop using your vehicle and instead use public transit? And I mean for just about everything. Live the no-car life and rely on OC Transpo. We have candidates for mayor, candidates for council. In this municipal election year, they're making lots of promises. Touting big plans with big price tags for OC Transpo. But if you don't use it now, because you prefer your own private vehicle, what would it take to get you out of that vehicle and onto a light rail train? Or onto a bus? Rip up the ownership of that SUV, that pickup truck, that minivan, and buy yourself a Presto card. What would it take? Would making it free do the trick? For example, free in quotation marks. Would making it free? If OC Transpo was free, would you use it? Would you get rid of your own vehicle if OC Transpo was free? Or is going car free and relying on OC Transpo for you just not practical? Because of whatever your circumstances, where you work, where you live, the number of children at home, their activities, your lifestyle. The reliability questions about OC Transpo. How long it takes to get from point A to point B and back to point A again on OC Transpo versus taking a private vehicle. It's a big expense for taxpayers. It's about $700 million a year now to run OC Transpo. 3 phases of light rail, $11.5 billion of infrastructure. $11.5 billion. Big money. So if you don't use it now, what would it take to get you to use it? Talkback Hour every morning. Rob Snow Show, 750-1310. This is City News.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Raven Reads. Unbox Indigenous voices. Subscribe today at ravenreads.org.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
Jean-Marie! Fire! The neighbor's farm is on fire. It's almost to the road. It's heading for us.
Help me get the animals out of the barn.
The fire's getting closer.
I'm on the horse.
The house is burning.
Get out to the river. Get up.
Can't leave everything. Careful! Don't fall.
Come on, we have to hurry.
Hurry! There's the river. We're going to make it. I can't swim.
Yes, you can.
Hurry! Hurry!
You must get in.
I can't.
Watch out for Spark.
His hair's on fire.
Keep their hair wet.
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Flooding is causing widespread devastation in Pakistan. More than 1,000 people have died. 1/3 of the country is underwater, and 6 million people are in need of emergency assistance. The humanitarian coalition is responding to the crisis in Pakistan. You can help. Donate today at together.ca, and your donation will be matched by the Canadian government. That's together.ca, the humanitarian coalition. Together, saving more lives.
That's the way I kill my skill sharpen, cause I've been here sharpening.
What's going on, y'all? It's Jay Morris, aka your favorite light skin, and you're gonna check out my performance on Encore Ottawa 3 coming up this week. Let's go.
All again, murderation, 911 call it in. Me, I murder every.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Joined now by our Parliamentary Bureau Chief for City News, Cormac MacSweeney. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you, Cormac. Big day, actually, for all the political parties. Caucuses today, right?
Yeah, all the caucuses get together, the MPs gather to talk strategy and news of the day, where they're going to stand on certain issues, and I'm actually standing right outside the Conservative caucus room right now, trying to interview MPs as they arrive about the ArriveCan app and the potential changes to COVID travel measures that could be coming soon.
Yeah, I bet you some of them will take credit for that. So, what do you know about that story, Cormac MacSweeney? Fill us in, please.
Yeah, so the reports say that it looks like the Trudeau government is considering scrapping most COVID travel measures by September 30th. We had known that they had extended the travel measures up until September 30th, and now the word is that they're considering whether or not to drop the COVID vaccine mandate for any foreigners trying to come into our country as well. The ArriveCan app potentially becomes an option for people. Of course, that's the app in which was originally meant for uploading your vaccine status, but you can also upload other information as you arrive into the country. So that could become optional after this. It'll be interesting to see whether the government decides to try and change the purpose of that app, maybe make it some custom screening app instead of just your vaccine proof of vaccination. And the one thing that I've seen as well with these reports is that potentially the mask mandate is still going to remain in place. So unvaccinated travelers can come into Canada. They don't have to use the ArriveCan app to get here, but if they're flying into Canada, flying around Canada, taking a train around the country, they would still be required to wear a mask. And as you say, there are some MPs this morning taking credit for that change. The Conservatives, a few of them that I've spoken with here, say that they think the reason that the Trudeau government is making all these changes is not because of the science, it's because of the new Conservative leader that was elected, Pierre Poilievre, and the popularity of him, they say, is sending shivers down the spines of Liberals, and they think that's the reason why the Liberals are changing their tune on this.
Okay, so far, these reports are based on people telling reporters things off the record. Nobody has been on the record. So what's it going to take to make this official? Is there going to be a news conference? What do you know about that?
Well, I haven't seen any notification about a potential news conference to address these issues. Generally, in the past, when they have made changes, it has been a lot closer to the deadline day. But we would require cabinet approval, I'd imagine, for these issues. And so right now, the Prime Minister is still in New York for his United Nations General Assembly, and he's going to be holding a news conference later today, so I'm sure he'll be asked about that around 6 p.m. Eastern. He has that news conference. But, generally speaking, usually cabinet discusses these issues and makes a decision on this before they decide how to unroll the announcement. And we haven't had a cabinet meeting yet this week. We could potentially have one tomorrow when the Prime Minister is back here on Parliament Hill, and it'll be his first square-off with Pierre Poilievre in question period. So I imagine that's the sort of way that this would be handled, is cabinet has to make the decision first, then they agree to the rollout of this in terms of a public announcement. But so far, nothing official. No minister has said, yes, this is happening. A decision has been made yet. So I believe CBC is, compared to some of the other reports, saying that the government's only considering it at this point and no official decision has been made yet.
Okay. Tell us about some of the comments from Mr. Singh. The New Democrats have this supply and confidence deal with the Liberals. There's lots of speculation about how long that might last. Will it last the full 3 years? But Mr. Singh yesterday pretty much ruled out any kind of cooperation with Pierre Poilievre. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's no surprise that the NDP would not see eye to eye with the Conservatives on many matters of policy, and he made that very clear that they would not be ideologically linked in any real way, and so therefore he's not going to be supporting Pierre Poilievre. Very interesting, though, the NDP is the first party out of the gate with ads to try and define Pierre Poilievre to the public. Generally, you see a new leader and they've got ads ready to go introducing themselves to the public, saying, hey, I'm a family guy, I'm a nice guy, I believe in you, and I'm going to stick up for regular Canadians. That's generally what we see. They try to define themselves to the public before their opponents define them. The NDP is first out of the gate with an ad campaign trying to attack Pierre Poilievre. Actually, they're using a line that the Conservatives Conservatives had used against Michael Ignatieff, the Liberal leader at the time, saying he's not in it for you. And at the time, it was more about Ignatieff just coming to Canada to try and win the leadership and become Prime Minister rather than caring about Canadians. With this one, they're saying he's not linked to the issues that are really matter. He just wants to do it for himself. And so they're using that same attack ad line against Pierre Poilievre. So that's interesting. But also, I think, you know, it's you got to look at some of the races across the country. Like, we're still far away from an election, you know, potentially up to 2025, maybe next year or 2024. But nonetheless, there are quite a few ridings across the country where the NDP, their closest competitor, is a Conservative. You know, some rural Ontario ridings that have swung New Democrat, they could potentially be at risk to a Conservative candidate if they run and Pierre Poilievre ends up making that connection. The NDP and the Conservatives are kind of going after the same vote right now. They're trying to get those union workers, people struggling. They're going about it in very different ways. The NDP saying they're the ones holding the Liberals to account to make sure that people have the supports they need. The Conservatives are saying that the Liberals are causing all these messes for regular working families. They're the ones who are going to turn this around and make sure life is more affordable. So they have different strategies going about this, but they're going after the same vote. And in some ridings, you know, I think the NDP might be a little bit worried right now, and that's why they're going after Pierre Poilievre hard to define him and make sure that they can secure their seat whenever that next election.
Well, we saw a similar thing happen in Ontario in the recent Ontario election, Cormac. 9 seats flipped from the Ford PCs to the Ontario, from the New Democrats to the Ford PCs. You know, Windsor, Hamilton, Timmins.
I wouldn't be surprised if Pierre Poilievre is going to be tapping into what Doug Ford was able to do here in Ontario to try and make bigger gains in the GTHA and try and win back some of those seats, flip them from Liberal or NDP to Conservative, and really give Trudeau a run for his money in the next election. But if we're 1-2 years away from the next election, a lot can change in that time. So we'll have to wait and see what the issues actually are and how these parties are faring. But according to the Conservatives, walking into their caucus meeting today, they believe the Liberals are scared right now because of Pierre Poilievre. And, you know, they're talking big right now about making change just by having a new leader. But we'll see how things go because, you know, a week is a long time in politics, let alone a year or two.
Yep. Great to have the circus back in town, Cormac, and you're right there with a front row seat. Thank you so much this morning.
Anytime, Rob.
Yeah, bye-bye. Cormac MacSweeney is our parliamentary bureau chief, and he's right outside the room where the Conservative caucus is gathering this morning. So coming up to 9:28, we'll have our newscast and then more on the federal political scene right now before we roll into some local issues during our talkback hour on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
$20. Hi, I'm Maggie. Come into my kitchen. When you're using salt in a recipe, check for saltiness. Not all salts are equal. A fine grain salt is a lot more salty than a large grain salt because that takes longer to get into the food. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. Down
the houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
Every year,
Dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, September 21st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 14 degrees, 13 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news this hour. Another of the lame duck council meetings begins about a half an hour from now. The designation comes due to the number of councillors who will not be returning after the October 24th vote. It is a provincial designation. It means council has certain monetary restrictions placed on it by the province until the new council is elected. Preparations in 4 provinces for the expected arrival of Hurricane Fiona. It may be a tropical storm or depression by the time it arrives in Nova Scotia Friday evening. The current track, though, could provide some wicked wind and rain for portions of the 3 maritime provinces and then Newfoundland into the weekend. The next land mass in its path right now, though, Bermuda. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered the first mobilization in Russia since World War II. It's a partial mobilization of reservists in that country. It's effective immediately. On the second day of the United Nations General Assembly, leaders will hear from the Ukrainian President Zelensky today. The presentation will be live streamed. This is a bending of the General Assembly rules of in-person presentations due to the ongoing war with Russia. Ottawa police officers are in Toronto today for the funeral of Constable Andrew Hong. He was shot and killed while at a Mississauga coffee shop. The Premier expected to be among those addressing the service, which gets underway at noon. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News 1011 FM.
and 1310 AM.
It's time to score your political fix. Joining us today, Cam Holmstrom, Principal, Niipaawi Strategies. Good morning, Cam. Welcome back.
Always good to be here, Rob.
Yeah. Where are you today?
I am out of my home office down in Brockville.
Brockville. Okay. Beautiful town, Brockville. Ashton Arsenault is here, Vice President, Crestview Strategies. Morning, Ashton.
Morning, Rob.
Yeah, great to hear from you again, Ashton. Not in Brockville?
Sadly not.
Sadly not. Okay. So, the polls. Now we have a new Conservative leader. His name is Pierre Poilievre, and we have some new polls. We can say this now, if Pierre Poilievre is the leader, how are you going to vote? Or what are your vote intentions? Or who do you like as prime minister now that Poilievre is in the mix? So a couple of polls this week. And they break down like this. Abacus. Conservative Party of Canada, 35. Liberals, 30. NDP, 17. Greens and PPCs, 4 points each. Okay, but a 5-point lead for the Conservatives, the Poilievre-led Conservatives. In Battleground, Ontario, same Abacus poll has a 4-point lead for the Conservatives. CPC 38, Libs 34, NDP 19. Meantime, a Leger poll also released this week. Conservatives 34, Liberals 28, NDP 23. That seems to be kind of a high point for the New Democrats, 23 for the New Democrats. But best prime minister, it's Trudeau. It must be the karaoke. Trudeau, 24. Poilievre, 21. Singh, 21. Cam Holmstrom, what do you think of the polls?
You know what, Rob, I always don't take too much into polls in between elections. I point out, too, yesterday that Nanos also released a poll that had the Tories at 31, the Liberals at 28, and the NDP at 26.
Wow, I missed that one.
I take your 23 and I raise you to 26. To me, what I take from this is two things. One is that basically the players on the field are more or less now set. And I think the thing that might have actually shifted things here might not be so much that Mr. Poilievre, because I think that's been kind of a given for a while, even though it wasn't formally in the polls because he wasn't formally a leader. I think it was kind of assumed that was what was going to happen. I think what might actually be shaping this a little bit is the fact that the Prime Minister is saying he's not going anywhere, that he's actually going to stick this out. Because to me, that's why when I look at the movement isn't necessarily in the Tory numbers, even though the PPC numbers are down. So I get more the feeling that this is more of maybe Liberal voters looking, okay, you're going to stick around? Yeah, I don't know if I'm up for that. I don't know if I'm good with that at this point. And
Liberals fatigued with their own leader? Liberals fatigued with their own leader? Is that what you're saying?
Liberal supporters.
Liberal supporters.
Okay. And liberal voters and liberals are three very different things, right?
Okay.
There are a lot of people who are progressive voters who have voted for Mr. Trudeau because they felt they had no choice.
Right.
And I think what you're seeing play out right now is that the NDP has said, look, we're going to make this parliament work come heck or high water here, right? And you're starting to see the fruits of that labor now with what was announced last week. So to my mind, maybe people are saying, well, look, you know what, do I have to vote for Mr. Trudeau to get what I want out of all this? Look, this guy Singh is actually out here doing it, right? He's actually delivering it. So, you know what, I find it interesting that, you know, I would have expected that, you know, I would have expected some slippage in the Tory numbers to this point. That really, everything's within the margin of error for them, but to see the Liberals in a couple of these polls down below 28% and the NDP up and rising at a pretty good clip outside the margin of error, I think that has to be noted, because to me it's like, what's the only thing that changed here? It was basically that Mr. Trudeau said, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. What do you think of these polls? Ashton?
Well, with the firm caveat that polls are exclusively for dogs, I would say it's not particularly surprising to me to see a bit of a bump in the Tory numbers post the Poilievre election. I mean, if you look at the trend lines going back until the last federal election, which of course wasn't all that long ago, you know, you're looking at the Liberals and the Tories basically being neck and neck, you know, trading 1 or 2 percentage points here and there, depending on when the poll happened, for, you know, well over a year now. And now you've got the Tories 5 points ahead, depending on what poll you're looking at. Look, there's a lot of work that has to happen between now and whenever the heck the next federal election is. So I can assure you that anybody watching these numbers internally isn't putting too much stock into it. You know, it's a snapshot in time, right? I agree with a couple of things that Cam said as well with respect to the NDP fortune. I think he's maybe putting a fresh coat of paint on it that I wouldn't, but nonetheless, it's not particularly surprising to see where the polls are at today.
Okay, all right. These seemingly improved numbers for the New Democrats, though, Ashton. Could the New Democrats be getting credit for, you know, a doubling of the GST tax credit and this $500 housing benefit, the dental benefits? What do you think?
So, yeah, I mean, it really depends on your perspective here, right? But I suppose I would ask the polite question, does the New Democratic Party actually exist, or are they just doing the government's dirty work for them on the side and absolutely getting none of the credit for it? So, you know, I think we're going to address the fact that there was an attack ad put up because if I'm doing the math right, for the last, 7 years, the NDP has perpetually had their lunch eaten by the Liberal Party of Canada, and now they're realizing they're about to have their lunch eaten by the blue team. So that's how I would position an answer to that question.
You're not going to have any lunch, Cam.
Oh, we're eating just fine. I don't think we need to worry about that one. What I'm enjoying about this from some of my Conservative colleagues is that the Conservatives have spent basically the last few months caterwauling from the sidelines, yelling and screaming about cryptocurrency and fighting to make a Canada governor, and yet when the government finally does something, acts as if it just happened miraculously out of the blue, that all of a sudden an idea like dental care, which the Liberals ran against and voted against just a year ago, all of a sudden, like poof, it just came to their mind because Pierre Poilievre sent a few memes about the Prime Minister, and he's shaking in his little socks. Come on. You can't have it both ways here. And I would point out that, you know, the NDP has gotten far more progress on their priorities than the Conservatives had. And frankly, you could argue the Conservatives have more leverage because they have more seats. They have more power, and they've chosen not to use it. And I think that's the thing about this. I think we're in a serious moment. Inflation is going through the roof.
Sure.
People are hurting right now, and I think people are appreciating that. And when it comes to the ad that Ashton made allusion to, I personally like how it came across, because it wasn't cartoonish. It wasn't evil. It wasn't this huge, deep, scary, soldiers in the streets kind of tone. It was very straightforward. It says, look, this guy is saying he's on your side. By the way, here's what he's actually done.
He's not in it for you.
People like adults.
It's a kind of Iggy, reminiscent of Iggy. He's not in it for you. But,
exactly.
I'd love to play it, but there's no narration to it, so it doesn't work on the radio. It's more visual than anything else. But the question is, why is the NDP out so fast out of the gate attacking Poilievre? I mean, we just saw Doug Ford in the Ontario election. The Ontario PC party took 9 seats from the NDP because of major outreach to working class voters. So I'm sure that's not lost on the federal NDP camp.
Oh, I'm not saying it isn't. I'm not saying it isn't at all.
Like, we got to get on this guy.
I'm also pointing out here that when you look at the numbers, you're not seeing a huge movement. You're all within, when it comes to that, it's not huge. But I think the other thing is, too, is that, at the end of the day, is trying to keep NDP members satisfied and happy. And I think this was part of the dilemma that the NDP might have had with an Aaron O'Toole. Even though Aaron O'Toole said some stuff in the leadership race, Aaron O'Toole, for the most part, was a pretty average, moderate politician. So it was hard to say he's the big, scary guy. Whereas most NDP partisans know who Pierre Poilievre is, because the man's had 18 years in elected politics.
Right. Yeah, the partisans.
And has said a lot of stuff. So to me, it's like, if they're not pushing back against them right away, they'd be getting blowback from their own members. So it's like the expectation of, if you're not going to push back against this guy, who are you ever going to push back against?
All right, on this point of the NDP out so fast, within a week, out so fast, going after Poilievre. He's not in it for you. He's not in it for workers. He votes against the minimum wage. These kinds of things. What's the MO there, Ashton? What's going on?
I'd say there's 2 quick things I would mention. There's a game script for how this works in practice, right? And Ontario, it bore a lot of fruit for the Ford government, and they really went out of their way to curry favor with workers, and it paid off remarkably well. Obviously, it was a smashing success in Ontario, so there's game script, and I can certainly tell you that will be of high interest to folks planning Poilievre's federal run. I would also say, unfortunately, the NDP has made the correct calculus in realizing that without the Federal Liberal Party of Canada, they are irrelevant. And I, of course, would try to malign the party that is most poised to succeed the Liberal Party of Canada, because they know they will not have the same level of favor with the Conservative Party of Canada government. They just will not. They have a lame duck leader, so they're trying to triangulate and save the skin that they can, because without the federal Liberals, the NDP is irrelevant.
Unless they're actually trying to win an election themselves. Heaven forbid we actually think that somebody other than either the blue or the red team can actually win an election in this country. That's kind of high-minded there, Ash, and I got to admit. Like,
all right.
Come on, give me a break.
All right. Hold on. Question period back yesterday. Big round of applause for Poilievre as he begins his first question as leader of the official opposition. Play that for me, please, a little bit.
Questions, question orale, the honourable leader of the opposition.
The opposition.
Be vaporized by inflation, which is costing families over $2,000 in extra costs. And that does not include the increased interest rate prices that people are paying on their mortgages. In fact, the average family could pay their housing bill with 32% of their paycheck every month. Now, that's 50% after 7 years of this Prime Minister in power. What's the solution? To raise taxes on paychecks with higher EI and CPP premiums that will shrink paychecks, and higher taxes on gas, groceries, and heat. Why won't they cancel these tax hikes so that Canadians can keep a roof over their heads?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, it's important important to talk about the fact that he's talking about EI and CPP, things that are important for people who've lost their jobs or for seniors when they're planning for retirement. But let's talk about real solutions, Mr. Speaker. We've brought in 13 agreements on childcare across the country. By the end of this year, families will be saving 50%. That's thousands of dollars that are going to help them with the high cost of living. That's real solutions, Mr. Speaker, that are making real differences in the lives of Canadians every single day.
Listen how he comes back here.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This is really good.
Can't even afford to have a family in the first place because they can't get out of their parents' basements or out of 400 square foot apartments after housing prices
Thank you.
have literally...
That's good. That's good. I mean, it couldn't have been timed more perfect for Mr. Poilievre. He's been such a hawk on talking about inflation, and the inflation report came out yesterday. Heavy-duty food inflation. What did you think of his line of questioning during the question period, Ashton? Tailor-made for him, right in his wheelhouse, I think.
Yeah, tailor-made, and he's going to be just an absolute menace in the House of Commons. I think to me this is honestly like the 1985 Chicago Bears showing up to play the Panda game. Like, there is just a painful mismatch in terms of talent and skill and ability to orate problems that Canadians are identifying with right now. And, he's been pretty consistent. To Pierre's credit, look, he's been talking about affordability, inflation, the entirety of the leadership campaign. And it's just not going to change. And people often ask, look, is he going to pivot? Is he going to talk about something else? No, he is not, because people care about this, and he's going to win on this issue.
I've got nothing that matches the Bears reference, Cam. I'm sorry, maybe you do, but...
Nothing like setting the bar real high. You know what? Anyway, you know what? I'll just say this, is that there's one thing that has been consistent about Mr. Poilievre and all this, and I've been saying it for months now. The guy has identified the problem. He has yet to bring forward the solution. He's yet to bring forward the actual solution to the problem and bring it to the table. What he was calling for yesterday, so he said, okay, you're going to cut the carbon tax. Does that mean you're going to take the carbon rebates away too? So you're going to give me back $200. You're going to take $300 out of my pocket. Congratulations, Pierre. I now have $100 less, in my pocket to deal with to actually pay my bills every month, thanks to you. That's your solution. So yeah. So to me, I wouldn't call him the 85 Bears in this at all. You know what? I'm not going to underestimate his ability. If anything, he's more like an early 2000s Ravens being led by Joe Flacco. Yeah, they're better than the other guys were,
right.
But not exactly that great.
Not a world-class quarterback. Not a world-class quarterback.
No, exactly. The way I put it is this way. It's like my dad used to tell me when I was growing up in the bush. When you need to outrun a bear, you don't need to outrun the bear. You just need to outrun the person next to you. Yeah. And right now, that's what Mr. Poilievre has been compared against. He's not being compared against the Almighty. He's being compared against what's next. He just needs to try to outrun them.
Okay. All right. We'll be right back. When we come back, these news reports, not confirmed by anyone in government, that the Trudeau government is planning to drop all these COVID-19 vaccine border requirements. When we come back, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Ladies, leave your man at home tonight.
Hey, this is Dominique Orley. I'm a part of Encore 3, and be sure to catch my set this week.
We are going downtown, leaving out all your stress and your sorrow.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by local authors for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
I mean, one of the major issues I think that, especially walking around in the market area, is housing. Housing security for those who are not going to be able to benefit from all of the development that we're doing. So what is the city's response? How can we use some of the properties that we do have power to control and satisfy the needs for those who are housing insecure?
I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News,
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Back with political analyst Cam Holmstrom, Ashton, Arsenault, Part 2, your political fix on the Rob Snow Show. If the news reports are accurate and the federal government is planning to drop by the end of September these COVID-19 vaccine border requirements, how much credit does Poilievre get, Ashton?
I mean, I'm sure Pierre would like to take credit, but at the end of the day, what I really want to chastise is government decision-making. I mean, this is a dramatic failure that can only be attributed to hubris. You can't get a passport in Canada. You can't get an access card in Canada. Going to the airport is an absolute nightmare. The government, at every single opportunity in turn, has been a day late and $1 short on these restrictions, to the extent that we are basically now an international pariah. So they are, softly trying to walk this back when they should have done it probably 6 months ago. So I hope the reports are true, because it's ridiculous and it is long past time to get this done.
Okay, Cam Holmstrom.
Well, I'm going to be curious to hear about the details when this happens, and frankly, what happens with our American counterparts. To me, that was always the reason for keeping it in place, as long as we were in line with them. Because what's the point of trying to leave the country if you're going to the States, for example, if you're running into the same wall there, right? So if this comes down together, then to me, okay, the timing makes sense because you're doing a coordination. But where I will agree with Ashton is that, my family and I went Friday to Kingston the other day to try out their new passport office to get my young daughter's passport renewed. We're told you can show up, come in, do it, right?
Yep.
Nope. We show up there. They send us to a website. We go to book an appointment. We go to the website to book the appointment. Guess which office doesn't exist according to the website? The one we're standing in Kingston. So we had to plead with the office people to book an appointment in person, to which we were told, well, you can only do it right away unless you can verify you're going to travel. We're thinking of going to see my parents in Florida at Christmas. We're thinking of driving. How do I prove that exactly? I don't have a plane ticket or anything. I'm just hopping in the car and going. Right? So finally, some rationality came to when we were able to book an appointment for over a month later to get this done. Right. So again, it's like, one step forward, 4 steps back with these guys. And this is the simple stuff, right? There's no way this should be getting.
Oh, yeah. Wait till they try and regulate the internet. Yeah, that's going to be great.
Oh, boy. Anyway, my big point here is that I agree with the frustration. But again, it's like this is only going to work on the restrictions piece if we're moving in lockstep with the Americans. So if we're not, I'm just waiting for all the headaches to come with that.
Okay. How much time? 3 minutes. Okay, we better move along here. Hey, give me a prediction. When's the next federal election? Is it this year? It's probably, it's off for this year, right? Next year? 2023, federal election year, 2023? Or beyond that, 2024, 2025? Cam?
My money is on fall 2024 at this point.
Fall 2024.
Simply because both Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Singh have way too much political capital put into the supply and confidence agreement to let it fail. They have to make it work. And to me, the only way you're getting the proper payoff is to get at least 2 years out of this at this point. They need 2 years runway. And to be honest, with all the troubles that everyone's facing right now between inflation, Russia, everything else, I don't know why you'd want to go to an election in this environment. To me, it makes sense to wait it out.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the Liberals aren't going to call an election at 28% in the polls. But Ashton, when's the election?
Yeah, look, it comes down to how much longer does the NDP want to mortgage its soul to prop up a government that Canadians don't want.
I love you.
So, as long as they continue to do that, this supply and confidence arrangement isn't a blood oath. It's not written in stone. It could collapse tomorrow. Trying to accurately predict when the next election is going to be is a difficult task. I don't think it's going to make it all the way to 2025. And in fact, I would happen to right now agree with what Cam said, fall 2024.
Okay. Are you cheering, Cam, for Danielle Smith to win the UPC leadership? Or UCP leadership, pardon me?
No, I'm not.
No?
No, because you know what? I'm just as I wasn't cheering for Mr. Poilievre, not because I wish my friends on the other side any particular luck or whatever. Just I don't wish the country, or in this case Alberta, that particular ill will. I believe that you need to have good functioning parties with competent leadership actually be there, right? Because I believe, the other side.
There is this thinking, though, that if Danielle Smith's the leader of the UCP, it gives better odds to Rachel Notley of the NDP.
Honestly, I like Rachel's odds against whoever it is on the other side.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
But,
okay, all right.
No, but I don't think it matters. So the thing is that what a lot of stuff that Danielle Smith is doing is really talking about setting Confederation on fire by just setting up fight after fight after fight that goes nowhere. The best point I heard made is that if you want to know what her ideas would look like, look what happened in Quebec in the 80s. Right? You want to see an outflow of business, of people, of expertise because of instability. That's what you're going to get, because who the heck is going to want to live through all that?
Okay, all right. What's ahead for Alberta if Danielle Smith wins the UCP leadership? Don Braid in the Calgary Herald this week, for example, said, whatever you think of Danielle Smith, they're going to look and rally around Danielle Smith because they really feel they're the better option than the Rachel Notley New Democrats. What do you think, Ashton?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, I'm looking at this with a lot of hope and wonder at the same time. I think it's going to be a rather dramatic departure from the days of Jason Kenney, and frankly, Albertans demanded that to a large extent, and certainly party members of the UCP demanded that. So. Look, she doesn't have the keys to the Ferrari just yet. All we are going on is basically what she's promised throughout the campaign. I kind of want to see it in practice, see how it unfolds. But the way things are trending, I mean, that election, that provincial election is going to be one heck of a dog.
Okay. By the way, just one more thing, just very quickly. Queen's Park Observer reports sources have leaked fresh campaign materials to Queen's Park Observer that Merritt Stiles is going to officially enter this race to replace Andrea Horwath as the Ontario NDP leader. I think instant frontrunner and would make a great leader.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line.